Good morning. It's 11:30 a.m. Eastern, and that means, that's right, it is time for first chapter fun. Hi Jen, down on Instagram. How are you doing today? Hope everybody's well. If this is the first time you're tuning in, this is the place where every day, hi Natsy, where every day I read a chapter of a new book on Instagram Live and on Facebook Live, because there's nothing like extreme broadcasting, is there? I just wanted to say that sometimes Facebook and sometimes Instagram chucks me out, just boots me out and stops the recording in the middle. So as I mentioned yesterday, if that happens, it's not you, it's me, or it's Facebook or Instagram. And if it happens, if I suddenly freeze and you don't hear me anymore, I will continue recording and broadcasting on the channel that is working, and I will go back to the one that isn't and start all over again. So don't worry if that happens, if the connection drops, I'll be back, I promise. So I'm absolutely delighted to see that Lynn Constantine is here watching, or Elsie Shaw, Elsie, not Elsie, Elsie, is watching up on Facebook. And you can ask her all kinds of questions and leave her comments about her writing, about her books, and I'll introduce you to her background and her writing and whatnot. So please, if you are watching, just leave a question either on Instagram, it doesn't matter, or on Facebook for Liv. That would be absolutely Lynn. Sorry, that would be absolutely great. I knew I was going to mess that up. I knew I was going to mess up because she writes under different names. I knew I was going to mess it up, and I did. It's Lynn Constantine, who writes as L.C. Shaw, but also as Liv Constantine. So let me break that down for you. But first of all, good morning, Maria. Good morning, Natalie and Kate, and we have Andy as well. It's fantastic. Lots and lots of people. Oh, and Sharon. Read from Sharon's book yesterday, if you missed it. So L.C. Shaw, let me introduce you, is the pen name of internationally best-selling author Lynn Constantine, who also writes psychological thrillers with her sister as Liv Constantine. Lynn and Valerie equals Liv. Clever, isn't it? That's Liv Constantine. Her family wonder if she is actually a spy and never knows what to call her. She's explored coral reefs all over the world, sunken wrecks in the South Pacific, and fallen in love with angelfish in the Caribbean. How lovely. I want to do that too. Lynn is a former marketing executive and has a master's in business from Johns Hopkins University. And when editing her work, she loves to procrastinate by spending time on social media, and when stuck on a plot twist, has been known to run ideas by her silver Labrador and golden retriever, who wish she would just stop working and play ball with them. Her work has been translated into 27 languages, get that, 27 languages, and is available in over 31 countries. And if you missed it, on Monday, which was episode 21 of First Chapter Fun, I read from Liv Constantine, so Lynn and Valerie's book, The Last Mrs. Parrish. So go check that out. Not now, because we want you to listen to this one, obviously. So I'm going to take my glasses off, because otherwise you're all fuzzy and I can't see what's going on. So today's book is The Network. That's the cover. Let me make sure I can get rid of the glare so you can see that properly. Isn't that a cool cover? I know it's back to front on Instagram. That's just the way it is. But up on Facebook, it's the right way around. So it's called The Network, and I love the tagline. I'm going to put my glasses back on, because it says, "They're everywhere, and they've only just begun." Cripes. All right. So I will now read the back cover copy and then chapter 1, and this is, of course, with the kind permission of HarperCollins, the publisher. So here we go. This is the back cover copy of The Network. A pulse-pounding, page-turning thriller involving corruption, secrets and lies at the very deepest levels of government and media. A shadowy group is manipulating society, and they've only just begun. Late one night, investigative journalist Jack Logan receives a surprise visit from US Senator Malcolm Phillips at his New York apartment. Dishevelled and in a panic, the senator swears that he's about to be murdered and pleads with Jack to protect his wife, Taylor, who happens to be the only woman Jack has ever truly loved. Days later, Phillips is found dead in a hotel room in Micronesia, the apparent victim of an allergy attack. While the nation mourns, Jack and Taylor race to find the one man who knows the truth. As they're pursued by unknown assailants, their desperate hunt leads them to the Institute, an immense facility shrouded in mystery that has indoctrinated a generation of America's political and media power players. Led by the enigmatic Damon Cross, the Institute has its tentacles everywhere. But Taylor unknowingly holds the secret to the one thing that Cross needs to carry out his plan. Taking readers on a thrill ride from the back halls of Congress to the high-rise offices of Madison Avenue and a remote Greek island, The Network is a provocative, pulse-pounding novel that dares to ask the question, who's really in charge? So, that is The Network. And I'm going to apologise in advance because whenever I read, everyone sounds incredibly English because I am rubbish at doing accents. This is the one I've got and that's about all you're going to get. So these people from Congress will sound like they're British, but just pretend. So this will be chapter 1 of The Network. So here we go. The Network by Elsie Shaw. Chapter 1. Jack Logan had ditched his Catholic upbringing but kept the guilt. He hadn't planned on blowing his entire afternoon listening to the woman he was interviewing talk about her dead daughter, but he didn't have the heart to tell the grieving mother that he had already had enough for the story. So instead, he bought her lunch and dinner, listening as she painted a picture of the girl she had loved and had failed to save. Now he was behind schedule and would have to work all night. Man, he hated the pieces involving kids. The parents got to him every time, and his attempts at comforting them were as effective as a band-aid on a gunshot wound. It was after 8 by the time he got to his East Village apartment. He sprinted up the 3 flights of stairs and heard his landline ringing as he approached the door. Jamming the key in the lock, he pushed the door open, rushed over and snatched the phone, upsetting a bottle of Bass ale and spilling the dregs on the table. He grabbed a towel to sop it up before it dripped onto the hardwood floor. Great. He clicked the green button. Yes? Could you sound any more annoyed? It was his editor. Sorry, Max. What's up? Jack sank into his worn leather sofa and ran a hand through his hair. Tried your cell. Went right to voicemail. I was interviewing one of the mothers. The sound of papers rustling came from the other end of the line. You already did your piece on the decision. What's the angle? The fallout from the decision to let the show go on. A sharp intake of breath. You're not saying the Supreme Court should have censored it? No, of course not. But the voices of the bereaved deserve to be heard. He wasn't much of a television watcher, but when the class action suit against the network behind Teenage Wasted had reached the Supreme Court, he tuned in. At first it looked just like the setup of any of the other reality shows jamming the airwaves, an eclectic group of teenagers allowing the cameras behind the scenes into their world. Within the first 5 minutes of the show, though, Jack had sat open-mouthed while a young man retrieved paraphernalia from under his bed, pulled up a porn site on his computer and began doing what your average adolescent boy did behind closed doors. It was filmed so that there wasn't any actual nudity, but it was obvious what he was doing. It wasn't until the young man put the noose around his neck that Jack's shock turned to horror. So that was what erotic asphyxiation looked like up close and personal. The internet went nuts the following day, and homemade videos of other kids demonstrating their own secret hobbies began to appear all over video sites. When kids started turning up dead, it really hit the fan. A class action suit was filed against Omega Entertainment Inc., the entertainment giant responsible for the new show, by the grieving families whose children had been inspired by teenage wasted to engage in dangerous experiments that had cost them their lives. The Supreme Court decision had been handed down a few weeks ago, to the great shock of the plaintiffs, and the show went on, more popular than ever. Omega had won the case under freedom of speech protection, which Jack couldn't argue with, but he was disgusted by how the company executives were perverting the First Amendment for their own profit. He was happy to do his part to help tarnish Omega's reputation. "All right, email it when you're finished. You're still coming tonight?" Max asked. Jack grimaced. Sally Goldman's retirement party. He had forgotten. "Wish I could, but I'm too jammed up with this." Sally was a great gal. He was sorry he'd have to miss it. He'd send her some flowers tomorrow. He'd better get to it. He opened his laptop and began to organise his notes. He was starving. He'd barely touched his dinner earlier. He picked up the phone to call Joe's and order a pizza, and was surprised to hear a knock at his door. He made no move to answer it. The knocking continued, louder now. Who the hell would just show up uninvited? Once again, he regretted moving into an apartment with no doorman. Someone must have held the main door open downstairs. He slammed the phone down, jumped up, and strode to the door, ready to tell whoever it was to beat it. The words died on his lips when he opened it. Probably best not to piss off a US Senator. Without waiting for an invitation, Senator Malcolm Phillips walked right in. From the first time he'd met Phillips, something about him struck Jack as off. He couldn't put his finger on it exactly. The guy's manners were impeccable, his background impressive. Phillips was perfect. A little too perfect. Everything about him was so well rehearsed that Jack could almost believe an invisible teleprompter fed him his lines. What surprised Jack most was how Phillips's wife, Taylor, failed to see he was all wrong for her. Of course, he kept this to himself. His opinion didn't mean anything to Taylor anymore. Going no farther than the apartment foyer, Phillips started speaking in an uncharacteristically nervous rush. "I won't waste time with pleasantries. I need your help." His voice shook and his face was ashen. "What is it?" "I scuttled the vote. It was supposed to be a good thing, but he snuck something else in the rider. He has to be stopped." Jack had no idea what Phillips was talking about. Whoa, slow down. Who has to be stopped?" He ignored Jack's question and handed him an envelope instead. "Take this. You'll need it to convince Taylor. I didn't believe it. He told me he would do it. I didn't believe him, but they'll kill me." This was insane. He hardly knew Phillips, yet here he was in Jack's apartment, rambling like a crazy person. "I'm sorry, but I have no idea what you're talking about. Can you slow down and start from the beginning?" Jack asked, trying to sound calm. "No time. You're the only one I trust. You've got to find Jeremy. Get Taylor to him. They won't hurt her now, but later. I was so stupid." Phillips had moved into the living room, where he was pacing, sweat breaking out on his forehead. "Who's Jeremy? You're not making any sense," Jack said. "Go to Taylor and show it to her." He pointed to the envelope. "It's all in there. Get Taylor and take her to the cabin." How did he know about the cabin? Jack wondered, but he had a more pressing issue. "I'm the last person Taylor wants to see. She's not going to go anywhere with me." Phillips moved closer to Jack and grabbed his arm. "They own me. And Brodie Hamilton too. You'll see when they kill me. Then you'll know." "When who kills you?" Phillips let go of his grip and backed away. "Promise me you'll get to Jeremy. Promise me you'll get her to Jeremy." He handed Jack a remote control. "This will get you into our garage. I've taped our address to the bottom." He wiped his forehead with the back of his hand. "Remember, Jack, no matter what it looks like, I'm not suicidal or prone to accidents." Suddenly, the senator ran past him and was out the door before flabbergasted Jack could respond. Jack shut the door, began to walk away, then turned back and engaged the extra deadbolt. His eyes narrowed as he looked around, half expecting a phantom to appear. What was Phillips talking about? Did someone really want him dead? Someone powerful enough to own 2 senators? His head began to pound, and he leaned forward to massage his temples. What had Phillips done? Maybe he'd gone nuts, or this was early onset dementia. Jack could only hope. He'd do some digging, try to make sense of what had just landed in his lap. He threw the envelope on the coffee table, opened his laptop, and set a Google alert for Malcolm Phillips. Then he looked at the envelope Phillips had pushed into his hand, marked with Taylor's name. The hell with it, he thought, as his thumb slid under the lip and he tore it open. That was the first... Oh gosh, excellent. Facebook is still there. As is Instagram Live. Hurrah. No, they didn't drop me. That was the introduction and the first chapter of L.C. Shaw's new thriller, The Network, which is out now. It sounds so compelling and fast-paced, and as I mentioned, just the tagline, they're everywhere and they've only just begun. Who is everywhere and what have they just begun and what's going to happen next? I think Lynn is spinning a fantastic tale here, and I cannot wait to read more of that. Speaking of Lynn Constantine, so L.C. Shaw, she is on Facebook watching, so glad. I hope that was okay. So please send her a message or leave her a comment. Oh my gosh, I can't talk anymore. Leave a comment on either Facebook or Instagram and she will answer you and engage. It's always so fun. So we have Jennifer down on Instagram, who says, I stayed up all night to read it. You can't stop. I have a feeling it's one of those books that once you do, you just, you're going to be turning the pages until 3 o'clock in the morning. So maybe it's a good thing we've got some self-isolation stuff going on, so we don't have massive bags under our eyes every single day. So thank you very much for watching this episode of First Chapter Fun. That was episode, I wrote it down, 24, would you believe? And tomorrow, for episode 25, which is Good Friday, and happy Passover to everybody who is celebrating. Tomorrow we have The Unbreakables by Lisa Barr, which is an absolutely wonderful women's fiction book, very powerful, very intriguing and brilliant. We read this for my book club. I'll tell you all about that tomorrow. That will be tomorrow's read. Here, as always, on First Chapter Fun. And Lynn just says, thank you, Hannah. You're very welcome. It was absolutely my pleasure. Thank you for letting me do this for you. So tomorrow at 11:30 Eastern, as always, on Instagram down here and Facebook up here, I'll be reading The Unbreakables by Lisa Barr. So until then, please, as always, stay safe and stay kind, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching.